in the digital economy and despite this ongoing gap. Now, as I mentioned, today we will be discussing agentic AI, and just so we're on the same page about what that is, when we are talking about agentic AI, we mean systems that can act with a degree of autonomy and make decisions and carry out tasks towards specific goals. And now the webinar today, like I said, is Creative Trends 2026 Agentic AI, artificial intelligence, youth innovation, and the future will explore both the opportunities and responsibilities that are linked to these technological shifts. And we're going to be discussing key issues like ethics, data privacy, ownership, the future of work. And we've brought together diverse voices from across the continent to share their insights and give any collaborative opportunities. Now, for this webinar, we would like to recognize Donna Chepngetich from Kenya, who is the author of this webinar's concept note. We recognize you and we appreciate the idea for such a discussion. I would also like to welcome our esteemed guests. I'm gonna, please forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name properly, but I will try my best. So we would like to welcome Linley Dumuka, who is the head of innovation and activities in Malawi. And we would like to welcome Abanda Glory, who is the junior back-end developer and emerging tech innovator from Cameroon. And we also like to welcome Angela Kato Khaulati, who is a big data and data science student from Botswana. And we would like to recognize Jayant Vijayakumar, who is the Chief Academic Advisor at Sophia International School and from Lesotho. And we would like to welcome Aya Khalifi, who is an AI and data engineer from Morocco. We will welcome Francis Ozo Adibe, who is an emerging tech and AI enthusiast from Nigeria. And we like to welcome Inyas Curry, who is a university student and aspiring finance and tech professional from Rwanda/Burundi. And lastly, we would like to welcome Emmanuel Camilo Mesa, who is an industrial instrumentation and automation technician from Angola. And yes, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our esteemed guests. Now, as we begin, I'm going to pose two questions to our speakers. The first question that we have is, what are the key barriers limiting young people's access to agentic AI? And the other question is, what are the main risks young innovators should be aware of as they use these technologies? So as I invite you, I will call upon each speaker, and when I invite you, you can simply unmute yourself and switch on your speaker. So first, the question, I am posing this to Linley Dumuka. Linley, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Linley. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Tandiwe. So before I respond to the question, I'll first just give a brief about Acades for the sake of people who have joined to know where we work and what we do. So as you've all heard, as rightly introduced by Tandiwe, my name is Linley Dumuka, and I'm the head of innovations at Acades in Malawi. So at Acades, what we do is we work with the young people, mostly in the rural areas, and we support them to engage in profitable agribusiness so that they can increase their income and also be able to create employment out of agriculture. And we do this by providing a combination of services, which includes financing as well as training through digital technology. And this is mainly what has brought me here on this webinar to talk about the digital technology and also contribute our experience as well as contributing to issues that young people are facing or young innovators are facing in Africa. So responding to your question, in terms of the barriers that young innovators are facing, I think they're quite many. But for the purpose of this webinar, I'll just focus on a few that I feel like are a bit similar in several African countries. And to me, and also from the experience that we have at Arcades, the first that I would like to talk about is the issue of limited internet for the people that we work with mostly. As I said, we work with young people who are in the rural areas. And most of the times, these are areas that are far from towns, and there's an issue of internet. And just to give a bit of context for Malawi, I think in 2003, the Malawi Communication and Regulatory Authority had released a report from a survey that was conducted, and it showed that about 57% of the population in Malawi have access to mobile phones. But surprisingly, out of that, only like 18% of the population are the ones that have access to internet, as well as gadgets that are internet based. And to me, honestly, this is one of a very disturbing challenge, considering that young innovators, especially the ones developing AI products, we are looking for a target that is able to use internet-based gadgets. And our target is basically people that have internet access. So with this challenge, it means that we might be developing products or tools that at the end of the day will not be utilized. And this is a waste of resources, a waste of money, and a waste of amazing ideas that innovators have out there. And I think another challenge that we have seen, which is there, is that as we speak, there is still some policy gaps. I think for Malawi, it's just recent that partners and stakeholders came together to develop the AI strategy. And honestly, I'm thinking this is not a challenge only for Malawi. I mean, how many other African countries have policies around AI out there? If we were to be honest with ourselves, how many of our countries have AI related strategies or policies? And if we were to ask further, how many of our budgets or the government budgets have incorporated AI related projects or investments for young people? So there's this gap that is there that really is a barrier for young innovators to excel within the AI industry. And I'm thinking that it's also something that will probably affect how young people are scaling the products that we are developing and even testing them, because all of these requires that we have policies in place, investments are there, and the young innovators are properly supported. There is an enabling environment for us to be able to take out our innovations to other people. So to me, these are some of the barriers that are there, and it actually combines into the issue of funding, because I mean, this is also one of the biggest challenge that I've seen happening. If we were, or if we could all go maybe on opportunity desk and just check some of the funding which is there for innovators, you'd find that there are so many opportunities that are available. But if you look at the funding size, most of them are very small. And when it comes to innovation, honestly, we are looking at people that need big investments. There's cloud service that needs payment. There's
Mainly, I
human
hate
resource
to
that
cut
needs
you
to be
off.
paid, and
Mainly,
all of that, which needs funding. And just looking at that, there's really a barrier, and that could affect how young innovators are improving and also contributing to the AI industry within Africa.
mainly,
So
can you
yes,
hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
sorry,
No,
Tandy.
I was asking if you can hear me because I wanted to say if you could wrap up your point in a bit to let the other speakers chime in.
Okay, great. So yeah, I was just winding up. I think those are some of the barriers that, in my experience, I've seen that could really affect young innovators in Africa within the AI industry. So yeah, looking forward to the engagements and also learning from the other people in terms of how we can address all these challenges or contribute to addressing these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindy Dimuka from Academy. And as we proceed, I would now like to pose the same question to Abanda Glory. And just so we're on the same page, we each have around 3 minutes. So we have to keep your answer kind of brief but engaging. But yes, I wanted to ask about the Glory. Lily has mentioned limited access. She mentioned investment and funding. And do you also believe that these are the challenges that young people are facing? Abanda?
Um, Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Tanjimi. I'm very sorry. I'm unable to turn on my camera. I do not have electricity here, so I'll just have to talk like that. What Lynn, I don't know. Yeah, first speaker said, it's all true, and to add to that, right? Um, Most young people or youths in Africa, they are left behind in this agentic era because we do not even know that these agentic tools actually exist. Yes, we are not aware of the existence of these tools. And you know that you cannot use what you do not know exists. Many youths are still using AI as a simple search engine, I'll say, because they aren't aware that agentic AI can actually execute tasks and solve problems autonomously. Just to be sure, we know that agentic AI, these are systems that they don't just only chat, but on their own can independently plan and execute tasks. And this requires a higher level of resources and also trust. Another limitation that I've noticed is that we are taught in most schools or even training sessions how to prompt AI. We haven't been taught to be able to architect it, to build it. So moving from let's say chatting, just chatting to managing a system requires a certain level of logic skills that we don't have or we aren't being trained here in most schools in Africa, and it poses a limitation there too. Another problem is that agentic AI tools, they are very expensive. Or let's just say they are expensive, right? Unlike chatbots, agents run in loops, right? Constantly calling APIs to think and act. And each of these loops costs money. Now, without access to international credit cards or financial resources, most Africans are stuck behind, I'll say, a paywall. Yeah. So even with a subscription, you need a stable power and internet connection, like the first speaker was talking about. So these are the limitations that I think are limiting young people access to agentic AI tools. Now, some of the risks we can face while using these tools are one, I would say, okay, when you give an agent the power to act, right, like managing your database or probably helping you to send emails to clients and stuff like that, you are responsible for any mistake that it makes. Anything that goes wrong, they are going to put the blame on you and not on the machine. If the machine decides to hallucinate or delete your database or critical data, we're going to blame the developer or the administrator concerned and not the machine. And this is a risk. Another one is if you blindly trust these agents to do all the thinking for you lose the ability to be able to troubleshoot your system in case it fails. And this poses a risk. That's why we need to always keep a human in the loop to ensure that the AI remains a tool and not a master. And another risk I noticed is that these systems or these models, they carry deep biases in a sense that if we build agents to handle, say, community resources or job applications without humans auditing them, it poses a risk in a sense that it can discriminate, right? There are people who are deserving of a job opportunity, but since it is just machine reviewing the applications, you might just end up rejecting this how do I put it this person applying for that job. So that's it.
I think we got what you were trying to say with the sentence. And thank you so much, Abundant Glory. I think one of the things you said about power, especially because you just mentioned that you have no electricity, is a real barrier for a lot of young people as well in Africa. And to lead into our next speaker, I'm gonna call upon Angela Cato. Please, can you tell us what you think are the barriers limiting young people to access tools like agentic AI?
Thank you, Tandy. I hope you can hear me and
I
see
can
me.
hear you, and please remember that you only have 3 minutes
Okay.
to respond to this.
Thank you so much. I completely agree with Abanda and Linley on what they said about these questions. And I have to say, one of the biggest challenges is lack of information about AI agents. If I take myself for example, before I came to Ames, I was completely unaware of these different fields within AI. And that lack of exposure delayed my curiosity and the confidence in the field. So we can also not ignore the structural barriers like limited internet access, high data costs, and lack of computing resources in Africa. These AI tools are not designed for local languages and our realities in Africa. So this creates a huge gap between technology and Africa's real world problems. Now, the main risks that young innovators like myself should be aware of is we shouldn't overtrust AI agents without understanding their limits. So these AI agents are powered by large language models, meaning that all the AI shortcomings apply to them also. And a single mistake in your code or your execution can cause a chain reaction of failures. So there must always be strict, clear, safeguarding measures put in place to ensure reliability and accuracy of our results. So we must also have the basic knowledge for the development of the agents and use the right language to ask questions. Otherwise, we may not recognize when our outputs are incorrect or misleading. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. I think you kind of mentioned something that I believe Lindley or Abanda said about education and how a lack of information, which is true, and how people just blindly trust a lot of AI technology, including agentic AI. And with that, I'm going to lead into Jayant. Jayant, if you're there, please respond to the first and second question in 3 minutes.
Hi, Tandiwe. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for the wonderful speakers that came before me. I think I have very similar things to highlight, but one of the things I'd like to start with is in terms of infrastructure. I think when we think about the infrastructure in Africa, we often think about how there isn't enough access to internet. But I'd like to reframe it in another sense as well. I also think that the problem is also usage. So, for example, GSMA or Group Special Mobile Association's latest data shows that about 960 million Africans live in areas of coverage, but many of them still can't get online. And the barrier that exists there is data costs and digital skills, not only infrastructure and towers. So, for example, I think in sub-Saharan Africa, people pay about 2.4% of their monthly income for just 1 GB of data. And this is above what the UN considers affordable. So that is a real challenge. And beyond infrastructure, coming from an education background, I think we also need to look at it in the sense of our current education systems that we've followed since colonial times are built on passive compliance, and that actually doesn't help us create, AI creators. Students who've basically spent years deferring to a textbook or a teacher will also defer to AI in the same way, and that's a big structural problem, not just something connectivity or investment can fix. Another thing that the previous speaker also mentioned is in terms of language. A lot of the current models are trained on English. Yes, a lot of them can now respond in Sesotho or Setswana, for example, but the quality is real because everything is trained majority on English. So student prompting in their home language often receives a much weaker answer in comparison to someone asking the same question in English. So then that's because the entire prompting system, tutorials and everything like that is built on data that is available, and that often is only in English. So you can only interact in your own language, but you can't master it in your own language. And I think that's a systemic problem in Africa, where a lot of our local languages are also, disappearing slowly. Then, in terms of the risks, I would like to start with the concept of fear, because there's a big fear that AI is going to replace jobs. But if you actually look at the World Economic Forum's data for 2025, it shows that AI will create 170 million new jobs by 2030 while displacing 92 million. So that's about a net gain of 78 million. So the real risk isn't actually AI taking jobs. It is actually being locked out of the kind of skills to work alongside AI. So that fear also creates an avoidance, which is quite normal. And then to wrap up, I think like the previous speakers also mentioned, is how we can't just blindly trust AI, because at the end of the day, hallucinations are real and they can hit hard in context where the questioning a source isn't a habit, and we need to frame AI as a gateway and not a final verdict. So AI is not frictionless enough that you can use it constantly without building anything. For our youth in Africa, that's a risk worth naming. So the goal is also to move away from prompting alone and actually creating. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. That was quite insightful, and I really like what you said about passive compliance and how we're just moving from, because of the education system, we're just moving from asking the teacher to asking the agentic AI, and we're not questioning um, how these things. I think transparency also is a huge issue when it comes to these AI technologies. And with that, I am gonna move on to Aya. Aya, if you're there, please chime in and give us your ideas.
Hello, thank you, and greeting to everyone joining us today. Um, okay, to complete what previous speakers said, I will start with their point. So, from my point of view, the barriers are both technical and structural. So, as Giant said, that's firstly one of them is infrastructure inequality, or we can say the unequal access to resources. So not all Africa, but in too many parts of Africa, there is unreliable internet connectivity and also high cost of devices. make it impossible for young people to experiment with advanced AI tools. And here, when we are talking about AI tools, we are not just talking about open sources, but we are talking also about some solutions that requires stable cloud access or something like that. So here we need this AI tool requires devices with a high hardware performance, or we are talking here about high configurations. So secondly, we can say is the knowledge gap, or we can say the documentation gap. So most agentic AI frameworks like research papers are writing for people who already have a technical foundation. So here we are talking about young people in rural area or something like that who is curious but they don't learn uh the like the specific words that are scientific in AI, you can say like that. So they are curious but self-taught. They remain as self-taught or self-trained. So they are has very little that speaks directly to their context of these research papers. So from this point, I will dive to third one, and that third one include you can say both of this previous points. And this third barrier is one we rarely talk about openly, and this is the confidence gap. It begins with the resources when you cannot afford device like a stable internet connection or a single paid course. Your exposure to these technologies is cut off before it even begins. But the one goes deeper than economics. It's about who you see when you look at the world of AI. If the bases building the system don't look like yours, uh, language, the background, also the containers is absent from those spaces. So you began believe this word was not built for you. And so ever when an opportunity appears, this word you hesitate. So breaking this cycle demand more than fiber cables and free tools. It demands that those of us already in these spaces turn around and reach back. We can say like through mentorship, through open knowledge sharing, through communities where young Africans are not just welcomed but expected to lead. Because our goal today is not to produce a generation that just consumes AI, is to produce a generation that can build it. So for risk that we can say, uh, I'm gonna say like regarding risks, I can mention one major is uncritical adoption. Agentic AI systems can act autonomously. Yeah, they make decisions. Yeah, they execute tasks. They browse web, write code, or everything like that. But if a young innovator deploys such a system without understanding its logic, without control, without a human in the loop, they risk causing a real harm to users, to data, to everything. Like today I saw news, one company lost all its data because of miscontrol of Anthropic agents when it's accessed but to a file which contain APK and by mistake it removed all company data with a single wrong comment. So this is we can say that this is too much important. And lastly, I can add is their privacy. So when you build with AI, you are often handling user data, and many young developers are unaware about their protection laws or assume that they don't apply to small projects, but they need to do. And thank you so much for this opportunity to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Aya. I think oh my, you've touched on a lot. I like that you've spoken about people not just being consumers, like that we need to shift this consumption mindset into something else. And I think this is kind of something that the previous speaker was had touched on about. And I like also that you moved on into this risk about privacy and data. And I think that's really important. And with that, I would like to call on the next speaker that we have is Francis. If you're there, please chime in, give us your opinion, switching your camera so we can see you. And you have 3 minutes. Hi, Francis, we can't hear you. Are you there? I will wait for a second, and if he is not, may I call upon Ines? Ines, if you're there, please chime in. Let us know, what do you think are the barriers limiting access to tools like agentic AI? If I am audible, please give a reaction just in case I'm not. I want to make sure that please give a heart reaction if anyone can hear me. Great. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that I was not the one who is not. And I do not seem to see our two speakers in this. And I guess we will move on to our next speaker that I will call on. If Emmanuel is there, please chime in to the conversation, Emmanuel. This is one of the barriers, access to a reliable internet. Can anyone for the team let me know if Emmanuel is on here? I also do not see him on this call. Well, in the absence of, and I do believe this is an issue of internet, just to summarize what we've discussed so far, I think a leading issue that has come up is the cost of data. And I think we're seeing this at play and the unreliableness of data for young people to be able to access any of, or even to explore agentic AI. Another issue that's come up a lot is a lack of information or lack of knowledge, that people are only limited, young people have only been limited so far to prompting and aren't really exploring or haven't been enabled to explore more into the architecture or building their own systems that are meant to serve them. I think language was one of tying into this. Language was an issue that was brought up, that a lot of these systems are modeled based on English. So at the end of the day, we're kind of limited to what you can do with it if you want to do something in your language. And I really liked the conversation about infrastructure. Also, this is something that I had thought about, that apart from infrastructure in terms of your mobile devices, there's also infrastructure in people's countries. I believe the first speaker was talking about investments, that countries are really, African countries, not a lot of them are investing into such systems, which is fair, because if we're just trying to make sure that everybody has reliable electricity, building agentic AI infrastructure is the last thing on our mind. Excuse my dog, if you can hear it in the background. Um, and now I will just move on to our next set of questions, which are going to be specifically for the speakers that I am going to call up. So I wanted to ask Aya, if she's still on the call, in your view, as an AI and data engineer working with agentic AI, what practical steps can young people take to start building these tools, even with limited resources? and how can we apply agentic AI in the real world. So I hope you can see the question on the screen. I know it's a mouthful, but if you can, you have 4 minutes or to answer this question. We just want to hear from you. And again, I apologize if you can hear my dog in the background. She is noisy today. Are you there?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. First, thank you for this question. I want to keep things simple and practical today because I believe that this this is what young people actually need, not theory but recepts and real tools and real examples of what is possible. So let me walk you through what I know works, even with when resources are limited. So first thing we will talk about is how to start building even with limited resources. First step we can do is use free cloud computing. So here we don't need an expensive laptop or a powerful machine. We can just start with some tools like Google Colab who give you free access to GPUs and the cloud, meaning you can train and run AI models from basic laptop or low specification computer, you can say. There is also Grok EPA. There is too many EPA that help us to do this. And this, we can say that it not removes, but it reduces the hardware barrier entirely. I use it myself, and it really worked for me. So, second step that we can talk about is learn from open source, like Hugging Face. This Hugging Face is essentially a free library of thousands of AI models for language, vision, audio, and more. You can download, test, build on top of these models without paying anything. So here, that's with LangChain or QEA. Here I will talk about this. LangChain is a framework to simplify building complex LLMs applications without handling low-level details. You can say that no code framework. We can build an AI agent. Also, there is CoEA. This framework help you to create a multi-agent system. These agents work collaboratively in same time. When you have agents that they have too many rules and agent execute a task after next agent executes the next step, we are talking here about collaboration. So here we can talk about Scale AI, and these two frameworks specially designed for building agentic AI systems. So you have everything you need to start creating agents that think, plan, and also act autonomously. So uh, now we will dive to understand what. Yeah.
No, I thought you were done. Go ahead. You have 1 minute left.
Okay. So second thing we will talk about understanding what agentic AI actually is. Before we start, I want to be honest about the gap that exists today. Many people use the terms of AI automation and agentic AI interchangeably, so but they are not the same thing. Automation follows its instruction, predefined rules, and it does the same thing, the same way every time. But agents make decisions, and that distinction matters enormously for young builders because the skills, tools, and mindset required are different. So, bridging that gap, helping young African move from automation thinking to agent thinking is one of the most important things we can do right now. Agentic AI is the next layer. It's not just a chatbot. It's a system that can receive a goal, break it into steps, use tools, or we say call tools, browse the internet, write and run code, and complete tasks with the minimal human input. A multi-agent system is when several of these agents work together, each with a specialized role, like a team. When you understand this architecture, you start seeing opportunities everywhere. So another key I want to add is learning collaboratively and joining online communities like hackathons, Kaggle, or local tech groups that help youngers to share knowledge, access opportunities. and staying motivated without needing expensive courses. So, second thing, I will talk about how to create income with agentic AI if I have time. This is where it's uh,
I don't have time, but I wanted to say, I've seen that somebody in the comments has asked that you've mentioned quite a few platforms that they could look into. If you could write them down also for them in the chat, because if they were paying attention and they're like, we would appreciate if Aya would write down the platforms that she said we can look into. Because you mentioned, I remember you said we could use open source, and you mentioned a website as well, and you said
yeah,
people can look into learning collaborations, like learning platforms where there's community. So people could do, if you can, pop some of the places in the chat box for us.
yeah, of course, I can add them. Just I will finish speaker first, then I will finish my speaker first, then I can mention all the platforms that I did uh, in
Okay,
in conversation.
that would be lovely.
Yeah,
But I have to move on to my next speaker, Aya.
yeah,
Unfortunately, I have to move on to our next speaker and the next
okay,
question. Thank you so much for your input. We will come back around at the end of the session, and don't worry. I have a feeling we will have time.
yeah,
Now for our next speaker, can we please, if Francis is on here, is he back? Francis, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm here. Yeah, I'm.
so
I'm
we,
so sorry. I'm very, very sorry. I came up late.
it's okay. It's
Yeah.
understandable. And so the question is right there. How can young people start building practical solutions for the real world with limited resources and use skills in development? So the floor is yours. And if you can, please switch on your camera so people can see who they're talking to. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I thank the organizers of this webinar, the moderator, my co-speakers, and ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to be on this call. My name is Francis Ozo Adibe. I'm from Nigeria. To begin with, I would love to remind you, my listeners, that it is no longer a news that technological innovations have moved the world. This advancement has placed youth in Africa in a disadvantaged position. African youths have limited access to eventually everything, ranging from infrastructure, financial support policy, and high cost of devices. These limitations have buried a lot of ideas in Africa because of the role played by the African youth. And these limitations are possible because of the following weaknesses enshrined in the hearts of African youth, which are self entitlement syndrome, quick success syndrome, and the blame game, to mention but few. When I started my journey into IT and tech 23 years ago, with motivation, but I don't have the financial strength to and capacity to fund my tuition fee in the two leading tech school in Nigeria, Aptech and NIIT to be precise. My finance to purchase devices that are an internet subscription posed also a big challenge as at that time. But I have to start small. When I started working with across autonomous system, LLM applications, and full stack, I begin the process of engaging myself with this technology begin to reshape how I think about problems. I stopped seeing software as just an app and started seeing systems that can perceive, reason, and act with little or no human intervention. When you incorporate autonomous system, LLM application, and full stack development, you are essentially holding the building blocks of potential of practical AI solutions that can thrive in a resource constrained environment like many parts of Africa. To succeed as a young developer in this part of the world, from my own experience, you need to identify local needs. What I mean by that is that some young developers who just want to develop like Facebook app overnight, not knowing that you start with the particular problem or identified with the particular issue in your traditional society. And having this number of countries in Africa gives us a rich and fertile ground to identify a lot of problems, such as agriculture. In agriculture, you can see that a lot of farmers are battling with how to detect any crop or any crop diseases in their farms, and this help in poor production. So, as young entrepreneurs who want to venture into being successful in the tech world, one thing I must tell them that really helped me was at the identification of a particular or peculiar problem in my particular environment. Let's say, for example, in education system, some places you tend to see that a lot of persons who prefer we love it if they have text summarizing a text summarizer, and while in some places you tend to see that they find it difficult to recall like mathematical formulas. So these problems within our society, if a new developer who wants to succeed in the field of tech should not go in the search of the big devices. Like the big device I'm talking about is like building apps like Facebook, like Google and all that. But you can start small. You can start small with the particular ones that is closer within your environment, because you have a better encounter with the problem. Secondly, to succeed as a young developer in Africa, for me, I did not look at the funding problem, but I started small. A lot of developers will not want to start small. They eventually want something so big, and on the long run, if an individual starts a project that he cannot finish, it it buries that idea because he's not going back again to pick it. So what I'm saying in essence is that if what I'm saying is that as a young developer in Africa, if you are to pick, you pick small projects that you can do, you can finish. Then to succeed also in Africa, to the youth, um, young developers need to young developers, they need for full stack integration. Here, some persons will I say some persons who are front end developers who have a little bit of back end with no knowledge of the let's say the AI system or the natural language processing, which LLM system fall into, needs to collaborate, because what I see in African developers is that they want to do everything by themselves, and we have to accept the fact that we need interconnectivity. So for me, I think African developers are falling short of collaboration. Number one, interconnectivity, and looking at outside the box, inside the box, because they tend to be looking at issues that is beyond their comprehension. Also, African developers, hello, can anybody hear me?
Oh, we can hear
Can
you. Go
anyone
on.
hear me?
Can
Yeah?
hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm so sorry coming in late, and I'm not yet home. I'm just trying to uh, put up. So
And you
now,
you
to
have
succeed as a
one.
young developer, you need to protect you need to protect. You need to as a developer, you need your product that will have security in the sense that you don't just produce any product and put it out there. Maybe you just develop a particular app to, let's say a fintech app, for instance. If a developer who develops such app and at the long run, people start to complain that okay, this app we don't have this app, a lot of persons have funds have been moving from one account to the other. This will continue to make a big distrust in the data protection and the rest. So the way forward, the way forward, uh, the way for you need to identify local needs, the needs with significant importance in areas like agriculture, healthcare, green energy, education, transportation. For example, education, you can create. I've already talked about the text summarizing for people in your traditional settings, since problems are relatively unique to an environment. For instance, in some parts of Africa, the need for text summarizer will be in high demand, while in some parts, mathematical formula reminder. You just need to identify a need in your environment and address it with with your text skill. Whereas
Francis. Um,
in areas like farming, can you hear me? This place is noisy
yes,
here. I don't know if you can. Can anyone hear me?
Francis. Yes, Francis.
Huh?
I have to cut you off.
I
Unfortunately,
I, I
we
can't
can
hear
hear
you.
you. We can
Okay.
hear you, but I have to cut
Uh,
you
uh,
short.
he said,
I have to cut you short
okay,
to.
okay. Ca- Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. I have to cut you short, Francis.
Okay.
Oh,
I
look.
can't
Can you
hear
hear me?
you.
I have to move on to the next speaker, Francis. Did you hear that? Oh, Lord. I will write a message for Francis. But
Uh-huh.
to just to also to sum up what I have gathered so far from Francis, I think he said something very, very important that identifying local needs is crucial and collaborating, which is something that Aya also mentioned, that in this economy or in the digital economy, it's also important to collaborate with other individuals. Um, and I think with that said, I would, with your permission, I would like to move on to our next speaker, who is, if Ines is online, hopefully, if Ines is online, yes. So for Ines, we would like to find out from you, how can young people practically start using automation and AI-driven systems to solve real industrial or community challenges with limited resources, and turn these skills into innovation or income opportunities. So Ines, if you're there, give me a minute. Let me see if I can see Ines in our speaker. You may be under a different name, but if you are there, please let me know. If you are not there, I do not see Ines in our speakers, so I will assume that she is not available, and we may move on to Emmanuel. Emmanuel, if you're there as well, please give me a thumbs up. I'm checking the participants. So for Emmanuel, we would like to find out how can young people practically start using automation and AI-driven systems to solve real industrial and community challenges. This also kind of ties into what our previous speaker was talking about, like identifying local needs. Do we have Emmanuel? No. In the absence of Emmanuel, please, at least Lindley. I will pose the question now to Lindley. It's the same, similar questions. How can young innovators practically use AI and digital tools to improve access to services in agriculture and health? And again, this is something our previous speaker, Francis, was talking about. Lily, I know you're there because I can see your name. Please, by all means, share your view.
Hello. So yes, that's a very interesting question, Tandy, and I agree with what Francis was saying, that it's very important for innovators to really understand whenever we are developing the tools, and it doesn't matter whatever it is, whatever the tool that we are developing, whether it's AI or just any application, but we must make sure that we understand the problem that we intend to solve. So just giving an experience also, I work with an organization that has developed an application called AI Farmer. This is an application that helps farmers access timely information and guidance on agriculture. And as we speak, we're also working around integrating other services within the platform, like financing, other services within the financing. So it's really a product that practically tries to address the issues that young farmers are facing in the rural areas. And this product came because we were looking at the different issues that farmers were facing, including climate change. And I think in the past 2 or 3 years, Malawi has been badly hit by Cyclone Freddy and also El Nino. And this required farmers to have instant support in the field. Which is very different from the traditional training that happens with the government, which comes like once a year, and then the rest of the year they are left to decide on how to help themselves. So this is like a practical tool that came right in the hands of the farmer for them to get instant support. So yes, this is one of the ways how young innovators can practically use AI to support people within the agriculture sector. But one key important thing that I wanted to talk about within this area is also that as innovators, I think it's very important that we develop tools that people will be able to utilize, and learning from what everybody else had spoken about in the beginning on the barriers that we are facing. I think infrastructure still comes up as one of the key issues, and it's very important that we must practically develop tools that can be used within contexts that we have in Africa, like tools that doesn't really require us to use a lot of internet, or even integrating with offline capabilities, because we can't run away from the fact that statistics are showing us that not so many people have access to internet, and not so many people have access to the gadgets that require them to access AI. So I think that's a direction that we must take as well, practically, for us to be able to share innovations that are practical within the African context. And I think just to add on the same, we if we want people to use the AI tools that we're developing, I think they must be based on trust. There's something that we learned from a pilot project that we conducted at Acadis, where I think for people in the rural areas, the young people in the rural areas, they're looking at a tool that can use, which will not put them back in the stressful situation that they've had when they were losing crops to climate change. So they really want credible information. They want clean information. They want information that they can trust. So when it comes to developing these AI tools, I think practically we should focus more on data. We should make sure our data is credible, our data is has been verified, and we have more data, as much data as possible, because these tools honestly they need more information, more data, so that it can be able to provide the right information for young people, but also in the context that is within each and every country that we are focusing on. So I think this is basically what I wanted to talk about when it comes to how practically we can develop tools that are in line with the context of agriculture, but also within the experience that I have with Acadis. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindley. And just to be clear, your product is called AI Farmer?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I heard that correctly. And I really like what you've spoken about. I think Lindy speaks about something very important, that practical tools in the sense of, because Francis was saying you have to look at local needs, and Lindy is saying also consider that it must be a practical tool that people will use, and it should be something that we should consider should work offline. And I think that's very profound. There's no point in creating a product that people will not use, maybe because it's not practically relevant. It's useful, it's just they cannot use it because of limitations like access to internet. And with that said, I would like to move on to Abundant Glory. If you're still there, I know you had some issues with the power earlier. I'm not sure if you're still on the call. So, and with your question, I really wanted to know how young people, similar question.
Hi, Adjure, I'm here.
I was not sure if you was going to be around. So the same similar question. How can young developers start building practical AI, agentic AI solutions with limited resources and use those tools to solve real world problems? So the floor is yours.
Okay, can you get me?
We can hear you
All
very
right,
clearly.
thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you for this opportunity. Um, as a junior backend developer here in Cameroon, I see a big change in the sense that before we just talk to AI to get information. Now we are using AI to actually do tasks for us. This is a chance for us young innovators like myself to move from just using apps to building systems that solve real problems. You don't need a lot of money to start building stuffs. You can start by using AI to help brainstorm or expand on your ideas. This gives you a deeper understanding of your thought solution. Another thing is start small. Like Mr. Francis was saying, you should not try to build a giant system. Build a small agent that does one job very well. For example, you can decide to be an agent that sends an alert when water in a tank is dirty. That's innovative. That's a solution that people need. Um, you can also make use of free and open tools. Instead of paying for expensive money subscription, you can use open source. Open source, these are softwares that are free to download and you can always work on them. Now this becomes most useful when you use it for sustainable development goals. For example, I'm working on a project, Solar Aqua, with my team. I am building an agent that watches water sensors. It doesn't just show data, it decides to probably turn on a filter if the water is dirty. You can also decide to build agents that help farmers manage their crops without needing an expensive human expert. This this particular task aligns with zero hunger, which is a sustainable development goal. By using this agent, we can be of help to our communities by offering better services to people at a much lower cost. But then remember that if your AI agent makes a mistake, you are still responsible. You must always keep a human in the loop to check the AI's work. Understand the logic flow, build with the AI. Don't just let it do everything on its own. And also learn to build in public. Post your progress on platforms, no matter how small the project is. You can post it on platforms like LinkedIn. This gives you exposure. It exposes you to a community of builders who are willing at any time to help you in case of any difficulties. And you never know, that visibility might bring you employment. You can never tell. So to conclude, I'll say that, like I was saying, don't wait for a better computer or laptop or money. Start building small tools that solve local problems today. When we use our skills for as sustainable development goals, we aren't just coding. We are making a better future for our communities, for our country, and for our continent, Africa. And why not the world at large? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abanda, and thank you for your insights. We're so glad that you're still with us, despite the electricity going off. And I think it resounded really well when you said start with something small and build it to do one job really, really well. I think that's probably where a lot of young people we get overwhelmed by trying to build something big. And I think this is something the previous speaker also spoke about, one of the speakers, that start with something small and yeah, and share. I think when you spoke about visibility and showing your progress, this is something that is very profound. And I remember reading somewhere someone said visibility is currency, and I think what you're talking about speaks volumes to that. That posting progress will connect you with the right people. And with that, I will now call upon Jayant, and your question is kind of similar, but it's about your experience in education and AI integration in African schools. How can educators practically introduce agentic AI to improve learning outcomes while ensuring it remains accessible for students? This is a mouthful, and I would like my team to put it on the screen so that everybody can see it. How can AI literacy education help young Africans move from being users of technology to active creators? Kian, are
Perfect.
you?
Yes, I can hear you crystal clear.
Uh,
Thank you again for the opportunity. So, for context, I'd just like to give some background into where I work. So, I work at Cambridge International School called Sophia International. We're located in a tiny little village slash town in Botabate, Lesotho. And we basically serve middle class to low income families. So we basically typically charge about $1,200 at our highest level for tuition fees, making us one of the cheapest Cambridge schools in the world. So basically, when I first joined Sophia, which was about 4 or 5 years ago, at the time I was basically winding up my master's, and ChatGPT was basically the boom that was sweeping around. Everyone was interested in ChatGPT, especially students. So students were using it continuously. Adults were also using it, but the first thing I kind of noticed was a gap. Students are using it to get answers and ask all these questions, but how are teachers basically being empowered? So my instant instinct was basically to flip the question. So how can we get teachers involved in AI to basically save time and help them build better classroom relationships? So with that, we introduced a platform called Toddle. So Toddle is basically an AI-powered learning management system, specifically built for schools following Cambridge and IB. And it basically brings curriculum assessment, curriculum planning, progress reports, personalized feedback, and whole school communication into one platform. And the AI is basically designed completely around the teacher, not the student. So teachers can basically generate lessons, build rubrics, draft reports, and grade much, much quicker. And it's all based on the curriculum, which makes it even more helpful. So for a school like Sophia, where, students, teachers for that matter, are already stretched. And, our classrooms are quite big in comparison to a typical Cambridge school, where we basically have about 35, 40 students in some classrooms. With that, though, we didn't just roll Toddle out, at the get-go. We spent about 6 months training the staff before a single student was actually on the platform. So training sessions with the Toddle team, internal training sessions with our staff, and reiterating it as we went. And another thing that we also did was with coding and robotics was exactly the same. You can't just hand a tool to educators and to schools and expect confident use. You have to build it with them. So the most powerful moments actually came when the students and the teachers were actually working together to figure out how, this AI powered tool actually works. And that is the model that can actually bring true change. So the better move is not just to bring AI into classrooms, but use it live and show students what it also gets wrong. And that's when the hallucination conversation that a lot of us were mentioning previously can also stop. And with agentic AI specifically, the goal is also to move students from just single prompts to researching a research topic, identifying gaps in their own understanding, build a study plan with AI, test it against a past paper, for example. And that multi-step orchestration that we can do is actually what develops our thinking, not limits it. So in terms of the second part of the question, from moving from users to creators, what I mentioned earlier still stands is that we need to be honest about our education systems. In most of our education systems around the continent, compliance is favored over agency. And that predates even the use of AI in classrooms. So students who have never basically asked a question in class or never thought to challenge the teacher and their assumptions, they're not going to start doing it just because they have AI in their hands. So that shift needs to come alongside the use of technology or AI before it, creates that thing. And it actually is a shift that I even noticed. So, for example, about 2 years ago, I was in Nairobi for the Harvard Model UN conference for Africa. And in a lot of the sessions that were done, Lesotho wasn't represented. And when I raised this in one of our facilitator briefings, one facilitator teacher from another school actually argued that there's no specific constraints to Africa that are not there to the rest of the world. And that's exactly the problem that I have because the specific constraints African communities live with, rural healthcare, water access, multilingual communities, land rights, and these are problems that the people building these AI systems have never encountered. So a student living in Butavite, for example, is building a tool, but they need to build it for the context that they live in, not a context experienced in a first world country, and all those kind of things. So to wrap it all up, Sam Altman, who is the OpenAI CEO, he apparently put a bet with his CEO tech friend saying that we will eventually see the first one-person billion-dollar company powered by AI. And for me, for young Africans who understand local problems that global companies haven't thought about, that is a genuine opening, but it doesn't mean that AI should replace human connection. The tools that are available amplify the person and can amplify the impact. The people, the humanity, the human beings should show up. So I think what we need to do is, in many ways, stop creating robots that we already have been doing, but rather use AI to actually empower people around us. And that's when we can make true change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jayant. I think you said quite some interesting thing. I think for me, To echo what you said also earlier, the shift of mindset for young people, or even for people understanding that you can't always just take in everything that people tell you. We've just kind of done the same thing with AI and taken in the hallucinations as truth. So I think what you guys are doing, and especially the building with people, I think co-creation is such a powerful way of doing things. And I was thinking about what Abanda was saying, or one of the speakers was like, you need to collaborate and build with people. And I think you guys are doing the building with the people that to benefit, the beneficiaries of it. So thank you so much for that. I want to go back. I want to go to Angela and one of our speakers, and I also wanted to find out from her that from her experience in machine learning, how can young people start building practical tools, even with the limited resources, and ensure that the AI systems they develop are transparent, trustworthy, and useful. I think um, earlier someone did mention about whenever you are building AI systems or agentic tools, you become responsible for them. And to some extent, trust people need to trust whatever system that you've built. So, Angela, what is your opinion?
Yes, thank you, Tanji. So first, I'd like to establish how machine learning, AI agents, and multimodal AI are connected. So AI agents use machine learning models, and then it will combine them with the tools, the memory, and the decision-making processes to perform different tasks. So like Aya already mentioned, AI agents can use information from other agents to produce more accurate and useful outputs. So in today's world, I don't think building AI agent is the difficult part because we can do so using LLMs, sorry. However, young developers like myself still need to learn the fundamentals of how these AI agents work and how to improve their performances. So with limited resources, like my fellow speakers already have said, we should make use of open source learning platforms. So now the platform that I would like to add on top of the ones provided by Aya is YouTube. YouTube has practical tutorials of how to use AI agents, how to help them perform better. So if we make use of it, then it's gonna advance us in this field. Also, I think Abanda talked about showcasing our skills on LinkedIn. And I must add also GitHub. So like she already said, this will give you exposure. It will make other people notice your work and what you're capable of doing. And then to add to that, it allows for collaboration so that you ensure that these AI agents are used to solve real world problems in Africa. And they also mentioned that we must start small. So starting small, we can use what we call small language models. So these are simple models that can even run from your smartphone. So in Africa, where we have already established that we are facing many problems, this will make AI more accessible and practical in these environments. So another initiative that fosters collaboration will be the ones like this one, where we see Yalda holding webinars to put together individuals who have prowess in these different fields to share their knowledge, to share information with young individuals of how to improve their skills in this field. And Linley talked about transparency. So how do we ensure that AI systems are trustworthy? So for me, I think we should prioritize three things. That is transparency, validation, and we should use explainable AI. So to ensure transparency, we have to be honest about where the data comes from. We have to clearly state the limitations and the possible biases. So if you do so and you put these in your LinkedIn, in your GitHub, you allow for experts to actually correct you, to give you advice on how to better develop your AI agents. And then when we are validating our models and our systems, we should not only use clean data. So if we take the African context, information about Africa is so limited. So if we are going to use information from other continents to train models that we are trying to apply here in Africa, is going to cause low performance and unpredictable outcomes. So now about explainable AI, these are the tools that were specially designed for transparency and trustworthiness. So these tools will help make model decisions understandable to human users. So all in all, the goal is to build simple, reliable, and meaningful systems that people can trust and use in real life. Because you can build a very good agent, but if no one trusts it, then no one is going to use it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. And honestly, I don't think I have to summarize anything because for the most part, Angela spoke very much about what other speakers have already echoed. And I'm looking at the chat box and it does at the chat and it does not look like anyone has any questions whatsoever. Unless if you have a question, please put it in the chat. But in the absence of any questions, I think I want to bring out because I cut off Aya and I believe she wanted to address in brief, if she can, Aya address the issue of uh, income. I think he was saying how people can use these tools to generate income for themselves. And because of the limits of time, I cut you off. So at this point, I'd like to give you the opportunity to just speak to that a little bit in closing for today's webinar, talk about the possibility to make money from all of this. Aya, are you still there? Are you there, Aya? Am I audible? Can somebody give me a sign if I'm still audible? Give me a sign. Ah, thank you. But in the absence of any last words from Aya, I would like to call on any of our speakers if you have any last words in closing for our webinar. Just raise your hand and I will call you. Any last words in closing that you want to leave us with? Raise your hand, or else you will get my last words in closing. Because in closing, I think, Zayan, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Tandiwe. I just wanted to thank you and the team for organizing this webinar. I think it was really insightful to hear from so many different people using AI and AI agents in such creative ways around the continent. I think the one thing that kind of echoed throughout, if we kind of go through everything, is the need for collaboration, which I feel like is what is going to help us make the kind of impact that we all want to make, not only in our own countries, but across the continent, is that need for collaboration. And I hope these kind of avenues will help us to connect and collaborate and discuss, the real issues that are affecting us in this continent and not just those that we feel like are not applicable to us from other countries and things like that. So yeah, just again, thank you so much for this opportunity. It was such a pleasure to be part of this and to get to speak. And yeah, looking forward to future editions of this coming ahead. So thank you.
Thank you, Jayan. And just my in closing is again, I want to thank every single one of you for taking the time to be here, and I want to challenge you in the spirit of collaboration, to look out for each other on these LinkedIn profiles. We have each other's names, so connect on LinkedIn. Your next collaborator is right here in this very webinar. And don't forget to follow us if you don't follow us on Facebook, on X. I don't know why you still have that as Twitter. um, and on Instagram, and there's a Telegraph group, there's a YouTube channel, we are in all the platforms. Feel free to scan the code as well. And thank you all for your time today. I guess we will see you. Somebody else will be hosting, maybe one of you, in the next Yowza webinar. And thank you to the background team. Thank you to Budani, Silani, Donna for the concept note, as well as, yes. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.